Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So at the last hearing on this topic, I focused on a few areas where we could update our money laundering laws to make life easier both for law enforcement and for small financial institutions, including making reporting requirements more sensible and making sure we know who owns American corporations. Today, I want to focus on cracking down harder on the big banks that repeatedly violate anti-money laundering laws. So think about Citigroup. Just this month, the OCC fined the bank $70 million for ignoring a 2012 order to beef up its anti-money laundering controls. In May, Citi was fined by the Fed $97 million for letting Mexican drug cartels launder money through the bank. You know, how many money laundering operations are they assisting? And Citi isn't the only one. Other big banks break the law, they get caught, and then they shrug off fines that barely dent their massive profits. While criminals and terrorists continue to move drug money and terrorist money all around the globe. Undersecretary Mandlicker, are you confident that the biggest financial institutions in the world are doing enough to comply with anti-money laundering laws?
Look, I think that there's a lot of effort within the financial institutions to make sure that they have...
I'm not asking if there's a lot of effort. It's a really simple question. I'm asking, do you think they're doing enough to comply with the anti-money laundering laws?
Again, I think that there are very substantial efforts underway within the financial institutions to comply with the laws. To the extent that they're not complying with the laws, of course, we're going to be focused on those, both through
So let me ask it again. Do you think they're doing enough?
Again, Senator, that's a very broad question, and it's difficult for me to make a generalization. I think we're very vigilant in monitoring and making sure that they are doing enough, and where they're not, we in the Justice Department have and will continue to bring.
Well, I'm concerned about the fact that we keep going back at them repeatedly, which kind of sounds like it's not working. You know, I'm very concerned that big banks will continue to allow money laundering because the business is profitable and the penalties for violating the law are weak. Let's take another example. HSBC, I think Senator Brown raised it. In 2012, the bank agreed to pay a fine of almost $2 billion for letting Mexican drug cartels and a Saudi bank linked with al-Qaeda to launder money for years. It also admitted to moving money for customers in Iran, Libya, Sudan, and Burma, all of which were subject to U.S. sanctions. That was the largest penalty ever under the Bank Secrecy Act, and you know what? It was about 4 weeks worth of income for HSBC. The bank's CEO swore that the bank would fix the problems, but it didn't. Last February, the court-imposed monitor told a judge that he had, quote, significant concerns about the bank's compliance program, and HSBC faces a new money laundering investigation right now in the UK. Still, the Department of Justice dismissed its case against the bank in December. So let me ask Mr. Day, do you think the fine in the HSBC case worked? Did it get HSBC to start following the law?
I think there are a number of parts about that prosecution that cumulatively had their desired impact.
So
when you think
let me just stop. It had the desired impact. Then how can it be that a court-installed monitor refused to certify that HSBC's anti-money laundering compliance program was working? And in November, the UK just opened a new investigation, evidently based on new evidence of money laundering. I don't understand how you can say that worked.
So that was a Justice Department installed monitor, and that's another way of, I guess, thinking about the deferred prosecution agreement, is that it included a range of measures, including, for example, the decision by the Justice Department to impose a monitor to give us confidence that the various provisions of the agreement were being satisfied by HSBC.
I'm glad for you to have confidence, but I only want you to have confidence if it's actually working. And the monitor said, it's not. So I'm not clear how you can say that this is working. You know, let me just make the point, because I'm running out of time here, and I have one more quick question I want to ask. It's never going to work so long as the consequences are lame fines and no accountability for individuals at the bank who are responsible for the illegal conduct. I promise you that if HSBC executives had been hauled out in handcuffs and were sitting in jail after their violations in 2012, they would have gotten the procedures in place pretty darn fast to make sure that that bank was in compliance with the law. So I'm over, but let me just ask a quick one. Mr. Day, doesn't the Bank Secrecy Act empower the Justice Department to go after individuals responsible for breaking the law?
Of course, Senator, and we are focused on bringing individual cases where the facts and the evidence merit such cases, and we have done so in the past, and we'll continue to do so.
If we want to stop money laundering, these giant banks really need to feel the penalties, and the people who are in charge, who are making the decisions, need to understand that if they are putting the American people at risk, that they will go to jail. Until that happens, we're not going to fix anything here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.